Hi, my name is Albert, and this is On to Something. And this video is about a year and a half in the making. Back in July of 2021, I completely tore my Achilles heel, but this past weekend is the first time since then that I've played softball and I've gone hiking. The journey to get there has not been easy. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I could probably make a video about that in and of itself. But I think perhaps the most important lesson I've learned in the journey to recovering and being able to play a sport again happened about 20 minutes before I stepped onto the field. Initially, the goal for my recovery was to make a complete recovery. I theorized stories about they told them they'd never be able to walk again, and now they're out there running 2 marathons every weekend. One of those kind of extreme cases. I didn't think it would be that crazy, but I wanted to make sure that I made a full recovery. And looking back on that, I realized that the source of that goal was fear. It was fear that I perhaps could not do those things anymore. And I wanted to try to get into running and do things I hadn't done before as a means to prove to myself and demonstrate to myself that I had overcome the injury itself. I don't think there's anything wrong with setting a goal like running a marathon to prove that you've recovered from an injury like that. For me, though, running isn't really something that I enjoy doing. I'm very much a sprinter. I've never really been a long distance runner. It's just not something that I have much enthusiasm or passion for. So I did not want fear to become a motivator and a shift in my identity to the extent that I'm making so heavy a commitment to do something that I don't really have a passion for. I didn't want fear to be the source of my accomplishments. I think it'd be a really great accomplishment to be able to run a full marathon. And it's still something I may try to do going forward down the road as I have gotten to enjoy running a bit more. But I don't want to accomplish something and then feel like I did that because I was afraid of something. I want there to be a more intrinsic and positive emotion attached to that. So my goal shifted pretty quickly from being able to do something like running a marathon to simply demonstrating to myself that I was still capable of doing things. I could still play sports if I wanted to. I could get into running if I wanted to. And that became my goal going forward on the journey of recovering from that injury. So fast forward to the day of softball, and initially I was thinking about backing out. The day before, I went for a hike, and that was an adventure in and of itself, but I was really sore from that. And part of me wanted to say, like, maybe I shouldn't push too hard, maybe I should just take it easy. I could definitely do with the rest if I so chose to do that, but ultimately I didn't want to put it off. I didn't want to say, like, all right, I'll just go next week and then have a whole other week added on top of all the stress and potential fear I'd feel about it. So I just decided I'll take it easy if I have to, but I can play. I can go play softball. On the drive over, I felt a feeling that's really hard to describe. I would say it was a mix of anxiety, recollection, and doomsaying. I felt a lot of fear about, am I going to tear my Achilles heel again? I remember quite vividly the moment it happened back in July of 2021. I remember how I felt leading up to that moment, how I felt afterwards. I remember the long recovery, all the pain that I felt, the surgery, and everything that led up to the moment of being in that car driving over to play softball again. And I felt a lot of fear about, am I going to go through that again? Is this going to happen to me again? And I really struggled with that right up until the point where I put my car in park and turned the engine off. On that drive over, I came to the realization that it's a lot easier to talk the talk of saying, I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to have to worry about if I'll be able to play sports again, than actually walking and doing it yourself. It becomes a lot more intense a feeling and notion when you are about to go out there and potentially tear your Achilles heel again. Ultimately, though, I asked myself some really important questions. The first of which is living in fear of this happening again the kind of life that I want to live? And the answer to that was no. I don't want to have to worry about tearing my Achilles heel again. I would feel a sense of confidence if I was able to demonstrate to myself that I could play. The second question I asked is this the type of person that I want to be? Do I want to be the type of person that would allow their fears to hold them back from doing something that they wanted to do? And again, the answer to that was no. And I really use that as a mental framing to decide, well, okay, I don't want to be that person. I want to be the type of person that goes after the things they want to do in life in the face of potential fears. So, how can I do that? And quite quickly, I came to the realization that my 4 A's mental idea actually worked out really well for me. There's a video I made a video about it before, so maybe I'll link that in the description. But the 4 A's in its quickest of summations is acceptance, assessment, aspiration, and action. In this case, I used this framework to say I accept that I could potentially tear my Achilles heel again. I accept that I've worked really hard to make sure that doesn't happen, but it could happen anyway. I assessed all of the hard work that I've done, all of the jogging and training to get back to a place where I felt I could play again, all of the physical therapy, all of the time, just everything that led up to that moment. I thought about that. I aspired to be the person that would act in spite of their fears. I wanted to feel that sense of accomplishment that I was able to overcome those fears. So then I just got out of my car and did it. I just I just decided, okay, this is who I aspire to be. So I'm just going to do my best to be that and see what happens. So I would go on to have a really good softball game. I hit really well. I ran really well. Like my ankle didn't hurt at all. It felt very much like the good old days, I guess, where I just am a solid softball player, and I just feel like I'm pretty good at the game. So that all worked out great. But on the drive back, I thought a lot about my feelings leading up to getting out of the car and actually going to play, because I still felt nervous. I still was afraid of, you know, tearing my Achilles heel again. And I came to realize that I had overcome fear in a much more mature and actualized way, perhaps in a way that I had never done so before. And what I mean by that is, in the past and in general, I feel in the past for me and in general in society, I feel people overcome fear by faith or avoidance, where it's just like, oh, that bad thing's not going to happen. You just kind of psych yourself up into believing that the bad thing won't happen. And that can help in some instances, but I think if the bad thing happens to you anyway, then you end up feeling really blindsided and betrayed in a lot of ways. Whereas in this instance, I feel like I overcame the fear through acceptance. I accepted the possibility that I could tear my Achilles heel again. I also accepted the possibility that I could not, and that I would have a good time playing softball. But either way, I would be okay. And that's where I think I'm on to something. I got out of my car and played softball, not because I felt any assurance that I wouldn't re injure my ankle. I got out of my car and played softball because of who I aspire to be. The identity that I aspire towards wants to live a life where fears do not stop me from doing the things that I want to do. So I just tried to best emulate that. That shift in my decision making, worrying less about the outcome of something and focusing more on my intrinsic identity, is a pretty interesting concept to me that had never really played itself out before in that specific and that descriptive a way. And I think I'm onto something. I want to explore that more. I want to better understand the identity that I aspire towards, not necessarily the identity that I have right now, because while I do think that kind of understanding is important, who I aspire to be could be a really interesting hack of sorts to say, even if I feel like right now I wouldn't do that, the person I want to be would do something. So I'm just going to try to copy that, if that makes sense. And I think it's going to be a really interesting experiment. I do want to make follow up videos on this idea of using your aspired identity to guide actions. I'm really proud of myself for overcoming my fear of re injuring my ankle. And it could still happen. Like a year and two from now, just down the road at any point, it could still possibly happen. But I'll never forget the lesson that I felt in that parking lot where I decided the person that I want to be would not let that possibility stop them from doing something. And I think I grew a lot in that moment. So I hope this helps. I hope this story helps and gives you some context to making decisions and going after things in your own life. What do you think, though? Let me know all the YouTube stuff, the comments, likes, and all that. I'd really appreciate it. I really would love to grow the channel and make it more of a thing. And I would really love feedback and thoughts and encouragement and stuff along the way. So I really appreciate it. But for now, that's going to be the rest of the video. My name is Albert. This has been On to Something, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.